Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Yeah. We're
Okay, Carol.
we're dudes in film here, and we're here to talk about Tiger King. We're recording from our own homes because the coronavirus thing is still a thing.
Yep.
It Tiger King. Let's get right into it. I'm Matt.
I'm Trevor.
Yeah,
This
and we're
is
the dudes in film.
And
Yeah.
we're two dudes talk about film. Be sure to follow us on social media, Dudes in Film on Facebook, Dudes in Film Official on Instagram, Dude Film on Twitter, Dudes in Film YouTube.
Yep.
I know that's a lot to say there.
Yeah, but we really appreciate your guys' support even during this whole virus thing. And be sure to leave comments on our stuff. We read your comments. We take your advice on what you want us to talk about and all that. And we really could. We really want to. We're just desperate for human connection. That's what it is. But let's jump right into it. Tiger King. Trevor, tell us what Tiger King is all about here.
So, oh gosh, how do you even start with this?
No.
So starting off, I guess just a description of Tiger King for anybody that hasn't watched it by now. It is number one trending on Netflix right now. It's a Netflix only title. It just came out on Netflix, and it is number one on trending. And basically, it's a documentary about a guy named Joe Exotic, who owns a zoo or owned a zoo, where basically, it was open for the public for people to come in and pet exotic animals, specifically tigers. And that's what this guy was all about. This dude, you may have heard of him before. He's been on the news forever. Like, a lot of times he's been on the news, even before this whole Tiger King thing picked up. I have seen his face before. I just didn't know what I knew him from, and it's probably just because I've seen his mugshot on the news before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insane. It is a very interesting documentary, I'll say that. But it's also very it gets pretty dark and gets pretty deep at
Very
sometimes
dark.
as well.
Yes. This show on Netflix is rated mature for very good reason. There's a lot of polygamy for one. I don't know if that's what really got its mature rating, but probably there's a lot of like drugs and murder and
suicide.
Suicide.
So it's got a little bit of everything, and the thing that makes this, I think, a little bit more real is the fact that it is a documentary.
And it really did happen.
When they're doing these interviews with some of the guys, these are things that really happened. So there's a lot more emotion in it. So
It's
if you are someone that has kids, that this is not a family show. Don't watch this with your children. I mean, that's up to you to decide when they're ready for this. But these are things that really happened, and I just want to throw that warning out there. Do not let young kids watch this who are not ready for it.
Right. Yes. But all that aside, let's jump right into it.
All right.
So Tiger King, it's about this guy. His name is Joe Exotic. His birth name is very unpronounceable. But
I had it written down, but I lost my sheet of paper. But it was and that's actually one of the reasons why he changed his name, because he said that nobody can ever pronounce it right.
Right. Yes. So he basically owns this. Just like Trevor said, it's a zoo where you get to pet animals, exotic animals like tigers and lions, and I don't think he had bears, but he had all of them, and he always had this feud going with this lady named Carol Baskin, who practically did the exact same thing, but she would always attack Joe. She would always attack Joe for being cruel to the animals and keeping them in cages, when in reality she was doing the exact same thing, only a little bit, I guess, less cruel. So it kind of the first half of the show really does revolve around them having their feud, going into their backstory, why they hate each other, and what happened in recent years and all that.
The thing about Joe is that he has such a personality that, you know, it's unheard of. He has a very unique personality. Like he's when the series first started out, I kind of liked him at first. I was like, oh wow, he seems like a very fun guy. Like he seemed like he was always caring about the people. He was always inviting people to come to his park, and he made it clear that he hated Carol because this Carol, she poses so. Her thing is basically that she doesn't tolerate keeping animals in cages or animal abuse and that kind of thing. And I do applaud her for some parts of her work, because she does go out and rescue tigers or exotic animals from people's houses who basically shouldn't have them in the first place, and then she takes them in, which I do applaud her for that. I think that's great. But then she complains that tigers are in cages. They shouldn't be in cages. But yet she basically invites people into her zoo and lets people come in and see the tigers for a fee. And that's basically what Joe Exotic starts the feud on. Yeah. Is he's saying, she's coming after me because I have exotic animals and I have tigers and things like that. And yet she has tigers, and she is an animal activist, but yet she's also has caged tigers. So that's where this whole feud comes from. It's not even the fact that she's an activist, more so the fact that she has tigers locked up in cages, and that just makes Joe mad. The fact that she yells at him about it, and they just go back and forth. And their big rivalry really is because they both have tigers.
And honestly, from what it looks like, it may be just how it's edited, but she is pretty hypocritical in that area. Yeah, she does rescue them, but we never really do see her exactly release them into the wild or anything. And they even, at the beginning of the documentary, the producers said that there are more tigers in captivity than there are in the wild.
Yeah. And they're endangered species.
And they're very endangered. Yes, there's only, I think they said 4,000 left in the wild. 4,000, 5,000, when there's like 15,000 somewhere in the U.S. alone.
And I'll say one of the biggest difference between Carol and Joe is that Carol gets her tigers, specifically, like I mentioned before, from people who basically had tigers and can't, either they sell their house or they get rid of them loose in the wild or whatever. But as far as they showed, she doesn't breed them or do anything with it, whereas Joe basically raises tigers as cubs and raises them up, and that lifestyle where they're almost they're brought up by humans and stuff like that. And that's probably where she would come in and be like, well, young cub tigers need to be set free, whereas these tigers understand this life already. And that's probably where her argument would come in, but they never showed her real side of the argument and stuff like that. They really edited this to make her an unlikable person.
And I'd say they did a pretty good job. I mean, I didn't like her from the beginning. I'm sure that deep down... Yeah, no, I don't... I doubt it. I doubt it.
And I'm not trying to like defend her or anything like that. I don't know her. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit and being kind of going off of a little bit of research I did and just come off of how these arguments typically go when it's back and forth like that.
Right. Yeah. And this show doesn't revolve just around them. It's got a whole bunch of different side characters.
It just starts.
In fact, I'd say that. Think of Skyrim's side quests. Its number of side quests, right? Times 10. That's how many. That's how many side characters there really are.
Yeah.
But they all of them, literally all of them, play a huge role in the story.
Yeah. And they all look the same.
Right. Yeah, they're all. Oh my gosh!
Every single one of them have long hair,
Yep, or missing teeth. They
missing
all
teeth,
smoke.
or beard.
Oh my gosh! And there's only two likable people for me at least that are in like the neutral zone where they don't care about Joe or
Yeah.
Carol or any of the other people, and it's I can't remember the
Mm-hmm.
dude's names, but he is a literal human
You
version.
talking about Mario?
Um, I
I
I don't
believe
remember
that
the
was his name.
names.
Mario was the guy that basically bought tigers from Joe. And then he's just like, I bought tigers from him. Yeah, whatever. That's
Yeah, like the
basically.
literal Scarface. Like he is
Yeah.
the real life version of Scarface. He was a gangster.
Mm-hmm.
He was a drug kingpin. He murdered some people, and then
Mm-hmm.
he got out of prison for good behavior. I think I don't remember. And then there was
Yeah.
like Joe's like right hand maintenance dude with really long hair and sunglasses who would smoke a cigarette as he's working with gasoline, and he just didn't care as long as he just got paid and was left alone.
Yeah.
He was easily my favorite just because the interviewer would say, "What do you think about all this?" He's like, "I don't care. I just don't care. I
Mm-hmm.
As long as I just get to have room and board, I really don't care."
Yeah.
And I think
And
that was like, yeah,
for sure. And the one thing about Joe Exotic as well, I think one of the things that I wanted to mention in here is that you have seen, whether you know or not, you have seen some of his tigers before, or I don't want to say you have. I mean, it kind of depends, but he has been in his zoo has been in movies before.
mm-hmm,
There were Ace Ventura was filmed parts there with the tigers.
yeah,
Jungle Book was, I think, not the new Jungle Book, like the older Jungle Book movie there was, and then even Doctor Dolittle had a couple of scenes there. So his park is pretty famous, and
mm-hmm,
beforehand, just on that too.
yep,
So yeah.
yeah. So that's basically the first half of the show. Really, just
Mhm.
talks about
Yeah.
Carol and Joe fighting with each other. And
Yep.
do we want to go into like the whole plot or anything here?
No, yeah, I think there's still more to mention, just kind of in this
Right.
first half. Like some of the things that I got out of this is that while they're talking about Joe, like this was a guy that, aside from his friends and family, as we mentioned before, he was very popular already. I mean, he was on the news several times, and not because of this whole thing with the everything that went on, but also just because of, like I said, the movies he was in. People like absolutely loved his zoo. Everybody that met him basically loved him when they went there. And then there's a whole thing with the animal activist things. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that they did a really good job at editing this first part here, because there was one scene on here where they had mentioned, or Joe had mentioned, where there were animal activist people, or PETA, came in and basically were trespassing on his property
Mm-hmm.
to take videos of how he treats his animals, because they were saying that he abuses tigers. And this is important because that does play on later, I think.
Yep.
But he was saying, they were basically just like, oh yeah, he's a tiger abuser. He beats these animals and they're locked up in cages. Joe claims that's never true. He goes, I do not beat the tigers. They love me just as much as I love them. And basically he threatened to shoot people who came onto his property because he's a country hick
He would
that has
carry a gun on
many
him.
guns,
He
that would
literally
carry
had
guns around with him.
So many guns.
And
like-
and he said he used to not at first, but then like it got so bad where people were getting pushy that he would carry a gun on him.
Mhm.
And I just want to say, as somebody that has worked in the media and stuff before, that's awful media ethics. One of the things that I learned when I went to take journalism classes is that there's a whole like journalism code, and one of them is not trespassing on people's properties. In a situation like that, there are lines for everything, and there are windows, but if you're just busting onto someone's property just to try and privately film them after hours when they're closed, like especially if you have no reason to be on their property, you're just doing it just for your own agenda, you're a piece of crap. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's not cool. And another thing too is, while all this was going on, while this documentary spans a lot of time, I'd say maybe a good 6 years.
Yeah, I think they said it took 5 years to film it.
Yeah, and a whole lot goes on. They had a reality show of him, like they actually had a legit reality show being filmed, but a whole bunch of stuff happened, and like they got maybe a year's. This producer practically lived with Joe for a better part of a year.
He did live there.
Yeah, he did live there for a better part of a year, and then it all burned down, figuratively and literally.
So the whole reality show thing takes in place with basically Joe was full of himself, and he recorded everything, which I will talk about the recording everything later here. But basically Joe Exotic, he recorded everything, and one of the things that he did is he had a TV station that he did where he basically sat in front of a green screen, and he had probably a really awful, crappy television show where he basically just talked about whatever the heck he wanted, probably.
Yeah, mostly hate towards Carol Baskin.
Yeah, well, that's what they showed in the podcast. I'd be interested to go back and actually watch an episode of the show to see what it was about.
I'm intrigued to do that as well. Yeah.
It's just like he did mention Carol Baskin basically in every single episode, according to everybody there. I would like to watch an episode though, because again, that's just them editing for their agenda to make it towards that. I mean, some of the other stuff might have been irrelevant to the Tiger King, but I would be interested to see what it's about. Just to see how it does play, see if it is just him bashing Carol or if there's more stuff to it. But this dude's full of himself. So
definitely,
this dude that did the reality show did reality shows, a couple of them for MTV that he mentioned the name of. They went over my head because I don't watch reality television.
Right, same here. It's
but
just a disaster.
Was a successful Hollywood producer,
he was
basically.
He's actually when you look at him, like you see like Hollywood director in him.
Yeah,
like, the way he dresses, the way he talks, the way he acts, like he is Mr. Hollywood.
So Joe hired this guy knowing well that this dude could and was going to make him famous, and it might not have been the reasons for why Joe wanted him to, but he knew that this guy was able to put Joe in the place that he wanted to go, basically. So that's why this whole thing came in. This guy was basically producing a reality television show, and part of the contract and the agreement that they signed upon was, if you do a reality show of me, you also have to produce my television shows, because that's what Joe wanted. Joe wanted his television shows to basically be more popular.
And it was all basically just streamed on Facebook back when people would use their webcam or something on their laptop like I am right now. But that's basically all he would do, is just have a green screen, have a green, like he would put like a picture of a tiger on it or something, and he would just talk. Maybe I think they said 80 people at a time at the most would watch.
Yeah, they said like 80 people at the most would watch usually, and like apparently he did this show every single day.
Yep.
I mean, this dude worked. It sounded like from this thing that he worked basically 24/7.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Also, little side note, can we just talk about his eyebrow ring? Okay, this dude. Okay, one thing that you need to know about Joe.
Yes.
He is extremely homosexual. He's very, like we said, full of himself. He likes. He's very pierced, very tatted, very tattooed up, and he's got lots of like those little earrings and stuff like all over him. He's very pierced, and he's got this little eyebrow ring right there on his left eyebrow. And every time you look at it, you're like, oh man, one little tug and that thing comes out. Like, it's extremely hard not to look at. Like, oh my goodness. And here's the thing, I encourage you, if you guys are on Twitter, go on Twitter after this and just type in hashtag Tiger King. You will not be disappointed. There's so much that people are talking about this thing, and it's downright hilarious. Like,
I just want to let people know that this episode isn't to point out, a lot of the rumors if we think so and so did do this or that. We're just simply talking about our thoughts on this.
Right.
I honestly have no opinion on all the stuff that happens, and we'll talk. If you haven't watched, I don't want to spoil anything, but all the stuff and all the conspiracies, I honestly have no insight on that. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. That's why I see a lot of people post on Facebook, and I kind of wanted to avoid that side of it, because we have no way of knowing. It's
right. Yeah. But the way they project it, and like we said, it's probably, the story is probably twisted in a lot of ways. It does make it look like a lot of people did a lot of things, even though that's probably not true. But it's just that the way that they shot it and the way that they edited it and everything.
Oh yeah, it's good editing in that sense, to where they do a very good job. And I applaud the editors for that. They did a very good job at making it very biased at who they wanted to put bias towards, and making you have an opinion towards certain people. And that's, I'm going to say that's the one thing that I think I would probably disliked about the documentary, is that it did feel a little biased to me. Granted, these guys were there with him, so they probably did see a lot of it secondhand and have their opinion on it, which is totally fair. But it did seem a little biased to me at times, which is fine. It happens. Everybody has a bias. So
yeah. Trying to think here, what to cover next here.
Well, we can get into the good stuff now.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about. Well, you go ahead. I'll let you cover your thing first.
So, part of this dude's career, he opened up in 1999 is when he started. So when they started the documentary, it was a good part of 16 years since the zoo has been around.
Yes.
In his time, he was on the Jay Leno show. He was on the Stephen Colbert show. Like as we mentioned before, he helped out with Ace Ventura and things like that.
Very popular.
And he even, one of the co-workers on the show even mentioned that they took a death pact with each other, where basically if anything ever happened to the zoo where they decided to take the animals away or whatever, like they would shoot each other. Which I also thought was really interesting. So that, I just want to show you how crazy or how influential this guy can be. I mean, he convinced me to do a death pact with him.
And he manipulated.
He had two husbands
to the best. Like, he is a master manipulator. Like, he was able. Okay, here's the thing. He was able to convince two straight men, right? Two very straight men to marry him. Yeah, just out of nowhere. And at the same time, like at the same wedding.
Because his first husband, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember either, but he had no teeth.
It was like John Finley or something like that.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
He has no teeth, because one of the things that he mentioned is basically like he wanted to work there because the dude, or Joe, basically offered him whatever he wanted. He got to hang out with cool exotic animals that he never would get to hang out with in real life. Plus, he was a druggie, so one of the things like they did was crystal meth.
Yes.
And he was like, Joe could offer me all the crystal meth I wanted to. I got to hang out with cool animals all day, so it seemed good to him. He even admitted that he was never actually gay, or he never thought he was gay in the documentary, and that was insane. So basically, he convinced a straight guy to marry him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it happened later. They met another guy. I think his name was Travis.
Travis, yes, that's his name.
And
he was 19. He was a stupid
he was
kid.
He was 19 when he moved to the park.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things that Joe said to him was like, he's like, "Oh, are you
Are you
gay?
straight?
Are you straight?"
Yeah.
And then the guy told him, "Yeah." And then he was like, "Oh, well," he asked him a question about porn, and then apparently he's like, "Well, then you're not as straight as you think you are," or something like that.
Yeah. And it turns out at the end, like they both said that they were straight.
Well, yeah. Well, Travis died.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was
from everyone
so
else's.
Really
from everyone
from
else's,
everybody else's perspective. Everyone else was like, "Yeah, we never thought he was gay."
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, he took advantage. Like Travis basically took advantage of Joe in the sense of Joe gave him whatever he wanted, and Joe took advantage of Travis by basically being like, "I can give you whatever you want."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so it was a very
and the story of Travis is just it's really tragic because
and it is,
man, like we said, this episode's a little sensitive, but Joe, he had security cameras all over his his zoo, and they either cropped it out just right or Travis stood at just the right spot. There is like a moment where we see someone's reaction to Travis shooting himself.
Yeah.
And it's really depressing. Like you see this person go through all of those emotions in like one quick second. And even before, like the camera crew were like walking around on Joe's property and they're like, "Oh, Travis, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm smoking my last cigarette before I die." And they're like, "Oh, haha, that's really funny." And then he follows through.
Like, apparently that's stuff that he said all the time. Like,
right. Yeah, they just couldn't take him seriously. Like, he always was waving a gun around. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to shoot you." And he never did. He just really knew how to scare them. And then he did follow through. And then, like, you see this one guy, like, go through all those emotions. Like, wait a minute. Are you joking? You're joking. Come on, stop playing. Oh, my gosh, he actually did. He just shot himself in front of me.
And that's, like, I think that's the first time you see that somebody was unhappy, or that they show that people were unhappy living with him.
Yep.
They do a really good job of making the first couple episodes like funny and like lighthearted, to where I'm like, oh yeah, this Joe guy seems pretty funny,
Right.
seems pretty cool and fun. And then like as they get into it, like almost everybody that did live there. So I think almost everybody that worked there lived there.
Yeah, that was like one of their
them,
things.
Almost all of them were miserable. Like, his like the dude that was running the reality show basically was just like, yeah, I'm living like, I don't even like. He mentioned like not having a bed or something, where like the air conditioning never worked in the trailer that they lived in. There was always bugs in the trailer. And everybody lived in trailers. Like, they didn't have nice houses to live in.
Right.
They were basically just little rundown trailers with holes in the side of the wall and stuff like that. But people stuck up with it and put up with it because they wanted
crystal meth. They wanted the drugs.
They had their own
cars.
reason. It might have been the drugs or the nice cars, or even just hanging out with the tigers.
Right.
And Joe wasn't the only guy that was taking advantage, though. Like, they really dig into the exotic animal kingdom.
Yeah.
In this documentary, because there's also that guy. I don't know his first name, but Dr. Antle.
Yes.
That they talk about.
He was very strange. He practiced polygamy too. He had I think the crew said 5 wives, and they all worked with him. That's what he did. Is he went to casinos and all these other places, and like he showed these women these tigers and all that stuff, and he swindled women a lot. And he's a big womanizer. I think he said that he was on Joe's side. He didn't exactly express interest in Carol, but he did.
Well, yeah, he was somebody like Joe, though, who they were business partners.
Yes.
They never said they worked together in ways, so they were kind of business partners, if not friends. They're at least that, and they were on the same side as far as they both liked to have tigers as pets. I don't know if they said if he bred tigers or not, but he definitely did buy them from Joe.
Yes.
At sometimes, and he basically would put on a show, like he would have shows there with like the women. All the women apparently changed their names to live there with him.
Yep.
But yeah, he had tigers, and he was all in it for the money. I mean, he's a business guy that doesn't, he treated people like trash, obviously, and he was a guy that raised the tigers to, just to make money.
Yeah, that's why
everyone. So he was
that.
there, yeah. So that's how come That's how come he's with Joe, is just because Carol is trying to basically shut him down just as much as she's trying to shut Joe down. It's just Joe is more her target because Joe has a loud mouth and talks back.
Yeah, very well said. Man, it's just every time I think about it, like even as I was watching it, like my mouth was just open the entire time. Like, how can people have these opinions? How can people think that this is right?
And you just watch it, like thinking, like, oh, it can't get worse than this, and it just gets worse.
And it's only the second episode.
Worse.
Yeah. By the time you get to the second episode, you're like, we're all the way in, right? And you're like, no, your toes just barely touched the water. I mean, holy cow!
And I will say, like, I don't think it's one of those things where it's like some people don't think they're right. Like, there's that one girl who worked for Antle, and it wasn't that she thought it was all right. It's just
she had nowhere to go.
She was more scared that she was just thought that she didn't have anywhere to go,
right?
And she was a scared kid because she went there when she was 19, and she thought that something bad would happen to her if she left, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Because he did tell them, "Oh, you can leave whenever you want,"
but you can't.
But she was more scared that if she did leave, that she would be burning bridges. Or, like, all of her friends were there, too. So it was one of those things where it's like, you live there she was there, I think she says there for 5 years. So, you live with these people, you eat with these people, you see them every day, like, they become your family. So it was also that thing of, like, how do you get out of something where, it's like growing up, it's like when you go to college, it's like, how do you leave your family? It sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every single character was extremely intriguing. And then there were the, I guess, government employees that worked with him, like trying to help him with his money, or like cover up his dirty crimes. And I can't remember what the big guy's name was that had like the pet store or something with the monkeys. I can't remember his name either, but he was pretty interesting. And you've probably seen that meme template of the big dude riding the jet ski. I never knew where that was from. I was like, oh, that's just a dude on a jet ski. That's like the new template. And then I watched Tiger King, and I was like, oh wow, that's what that's from.
Yeah.
And
let's talk about the guy. Let's talk about the jet ski. Yeah. Some of the shots.
Oh my gosh, they were just
in this documentary are hysterical.
So overwhelming too. Okay. Near the end, I think it was actually like the last episode, there was a dude, the crew went to go interview him, asking like, okay, what do you think of all this has happened? And he's like, well, I know. And he just undressed in front of the whole camera crew, and they're like, oh, do you want us to go? And he's like, no, you're fine. And he just got down, got into the bathtub, and just started talking. And they were they were just like, is this really a bad time? He was like, no, this is perfect. Yeah, I got you right here. I'm available right now. And he just did not care. It was so freaking weird.
I don't know what the thought process was. Like, either. If the guy was just like, the guy's like, hey, I just feel really dirty. I need to take a bath. Or if they're just like, hey, what would be really cool? If you got in the bathtub to show everybody how much weirder you are.
I was
like, the dude knows he's strange. Like he's
he fully embraces
he's like,
his
this
weirdness.
is just a bunch of misfits. Yeah, which is totally fine. But he's just like in the bathtub doing an interview. And then the one guy had his shirt off the whole time.
Yes, it was Finley. Finley had his shirt off the whole time.
Finley, and then the other bro dude with the long hair.
Yeah, he was always smoking.
Was smoking all the time.
Yeah, he was never like looking at the camera. He looked high, like high as a kite.
Oh, he probably was.
He probably was. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh my god.
But and then there's the dude who like he went undercover with the feds. Right, he was the bigger dude. He went undercover, and then like once it was all over, he decided to get himself a jet ski, and then he like in the middle of an interview, he was like he looks around, he's like this, he's like, "Come with me," and then it just cuts to him riding a freaking jet ski. This big old dude. He's got like the life vest. It like barely fits over his big old self. He's got the sunglasses. He's got like the fat guy mullet, and he's just riding. And then he just does this thing with the sunglasses. He's like, yeah. And then he pulls up and he does he's like, cut it out. Oh my gosh, that was the greatest minute of that show. Like that was
I almost
my
died.
favorite.
It was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it was just. It's so just random, dude.
It was.
Him randomly driving
It
a jet
really
ski.
was. It was so random.
I think
I'm
the
like,
whole
okay,
series
where did
just
that
on
come
this
from?
dude just driving a jet ski. All right. So I think this is gonna have to be a two-parter episode.
I think so too. Yeah.
There's just a lot to talk about, but we're getting close to time here, and
Yep.
we'll have to pick this up in a part 2, and then talk about more of the nitty-gritty,
Yep.
dark stuff.
Get really into it. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
gosh.
this is the first part. This is part 1 of the Tiger King, and yeah, I hope you
enjoyed it.
Liked the episode.
Yep.
Yeah, go watch if you are interested. If you haven't watched it yet and you are curious about checking it out, watch episodes 1 through 4. If you haven't yet and you're listening with us, or you can just go finish the whole thing. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all.
Right.
But if you're into documentaries or into like an interesting kind of crime and punishment kind of story, it's definitely an interesting story to check out, and worth the watch. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias.
Yep.
We post everything on YouTube. We're going to be working on doing some video stuff soon.
Yep.
So, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks guys.